Thanks for turning up for the Hauraki Scheme Committee meeting today. It's been a while since we've been here. Last meeting was in August. A few things to discuss today. I'll go through that in my chair report and a couple of items down the agenda. So thanks for coming, and I'll get Greg to do the Karakia.
Robbie, more than everyone, nice to see you all today. We'll get going. So, whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia makene kene ki uta, kia mātata ki tai, ki aki ana, ki atakura, ki tia, ki huka, ki haku, ki hei, mowing.
Before we move on, actually, I'd just like to thank Craig Zoidenbos for turning up today. He applied last time as an alternate, but I welcomed him to come along as a member of the public to see if he'd like to join the committee when the new memberships decided sometime in the near future. So thanks, Craig, for turning up. Cheers. Health and safety.
Just quick health and safety, guys. In the event of emergency, we'll make our way out that door there onto the field and see we're out there. The toilets are down far at the end of the building. On the right, you'll see a sign, and that's pretty much us. And tea and coffee and cup yourself out to the minutes right here. So.
Thank you, Jordan. Any apologies? Connell's on a motorbike trail around South America, so yeah. All good. So can I get a movement a second, please? Sure. Andrew and Jordan. Favour? Aye. Against? Carry. Thank you. Confirmation of the agenda. Please. Brian. In favour? Aye. Against? Carry. Thank you. Any disclosures of interest since we're talking about leasing land, lease land today and other things? Is any done? On. That's for
the previous. I wasn't here for a while, so I can't move.
No one obviously can it. Oh. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carry. Thank you. General items. Online. At the end of the meeting today, we're going to just go into an open forum where I hope we will stay of how you'd like this committee to operate in this training, and everything's up for discussion. Membership, this type of reporting, the type of where you'd like this. Do you want the committee to get into more financials and long-term planning, or does it want to be operational? So there's a whole lot of discussions that we want to tease out of what sort of committee you want, or does it need to be a hybrid of both, where you do the formal governance stuff at the start of the meeting and then you get into the more operational stuff once that meeting is shut down for the day. And the other thing too is I don't really like how drainage stuff is actually spoken in the flood, like spread out a bit, that we deal with flood protection issues and we deal with trench issues a little bit more separately. So and those are things we need to discuss at the end of the meeting. So we're going to give you a bit of time for that. And myself and Noel and Pete's here, sitting around the council table, we've talked about CCOs, of where flood protections may be going in the next, with unitaries may be coming, or whatever that view is in another 5 or 6 years. So we're definitely sitting around the table going, where should flood protection and drainage be in that space. And it's been an interesting discussion, especially with Lower Waikato, because they're looking at going a lot more self-administrating. So council collecting rates and then operating and managing a lot more of their assets themselves. So, but we just want to have it open, as I said, half an hour at the end of this meeting and talk through those issues with you and the membership to see where you're feeling, because the most important thing is that we're sort of aligned together with flood protection. Drainage, we can be a little bit more separated, but the protection of the scheme and the funding of it and going to central government for asset renewals, the more we are actually one, the better. We don't want to be divisional, or so it's we'll talk about that at the end of the meeting anyway. So that's the chair's issues. Anything else you want to add to that, Noel? Because you were in support of it 100% behind all this as well. So if you want to add to it,
You've covered it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
We're on page.
Yeah.
You'd also get the economies of scale if you're figure for that too.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
So,
So we'll move on now to, oh no, so we're going to have a mover and a second for that. Please. So, just have my chair report.
oh, you cheered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Roger and Andrew. All in favour? Against, carried. Thank you. Issues and actions.
Yeah, thanks, Robbie. I'll cover this one off. So, a very brief report from members today. Just noting the discussion at our last meeting around the land purchase that is on the agenda today. So this action has been addressed. Further information to be provided to you later in the agenda today on the case for purchasing this piece of land. But yeah, nothing further to add. Thanks.
Any questions for Greg?
That's just a comment if I can. The action that the Hauraki Scheme Subcommittee requests a business case, it doesn't actually say what about. The fact that when you knew what it was about, that's fine. But if somebody reading this had no idea what business case is about, so can we just get that what's
Thank you. So we have a mover. Please. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. This is Kieran's.
Yeah. First, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to introduce a few faces around the table because a few familiar faces possibly, but some also from different roles. So we've got Karen Botting. Karen is our acting scheme manager for Hauraki. So unfortunately, we're going to be losing Karen at some stage. So we're in the recruitment process of finding a new scheme manager for Hauraki based out of Plato. So watch the space there. Also joined by Ruben Mills, who is our land drainage manager. So he covers the Thames Valley drainage area, which is part of this committee as well. And so Ruben will take you through some land drainage performance later on in this report. Also joined by Hayden McGregor. So Hayden in past life was our scheme supervisor. Oh, sorry, scheme unit leader was the last name. But Hayden has recently moved into the role of program lead for our capital programs. So it's a new role that was created during the LCM review. It's one that Natalie has been holding down over the last year or so of the process, but now Hayden has stepped up to take on the challenge, and that is very much a role that's focused on our capital program and driving delivery. So great to see Hayden moving into the role. And I've also got Sarah Muir, who's joined us. You'll know Sarah from previous meetings. She's our land officer for this area, and we'll be talking you through particularly our land purchase, our scheme land management later on in the meeting today. So we'll kick off. So Karen will lead off this item, give you a bit of a rundown on our capital programs.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so When we talk about flood protection, we talk about operational, and that's what our first few slides are about. So our operational program of works. I have in the next slide a discussion about what types of activities we undertake in the operational space. Little bit busy slide, but ultimately what we're saying is we have the human stuff, we have our partnership and our stakeholder relationships, we have our physical works around construction removal, our rivers and streams. We have condition inspections around our assets, so our asset base, we have our maintenance programs around those. Some of those are in particular large pieces of work and that cost a bit more around pump station overhauls, including pumps and electrical work. We have the sediment trap annual program, so we'll be removing sediment from our sediment traps, so our structures, to enable the material to dry to use in future years. We have our health and safety compliance, which may seem invisible, but it does take a significant amount of effort by staff to work through that site by site and project by project. We have our Resource Management Act requirements, so our consenting, whether it be a permitted activity or whether it is a physical consent of conditions. We have paperwork and activity that goes with those. We have general maintenance, our fencing, our spraying, our planting, and general support for our schemes. Along with that comes our land management activities, which we'll hear from Sarah about later on. We have our depots that we have to manage and look after, and we have our flood response activities. So they're kind of the high level things that happen in that operational space. Certainly not a limited list, but it's a high level list. So today in the next few slides, we talk a bit about what that means from a cost perspective as to what we've done for the year to the end of December. And we also have some images about what it looks like on the ground and some of those activities that have been undertaken. Next slide, please. Cool. So in our report on agenda page 17, we have this image, which is our operational program for the Piako River scheme. So we have both schemes, Piako River and the Waikato Valley. So this shows us that we have 5 major categories of work. So we have oversight, we have information and advice. They're mainly human-based activities that we're doing in those spaces. Then we have our river management, flood protection, and funding and interest, which comes down to the fact that we have a reserve that money goes in and out of. So we have a cost centre that works through those transactions. But as you can see, the larger part to the graph is under the flood protection. So that's where all of those operational activities are taken. The green bar shows us what does our full year annual plan look like to the end of June. At the moment, what we're saying is that our budget is about 50% of the green graph, but we're slightly ahead of that in the blue, which is our actuals. There's some reasons for that, which in the report I've discussed. Ultimately, our on-the-ground activities are in line with our expected financial spend, but we have had a bit more expenditure related to depreciation and allocated costs. Some of that's timing and some of that's real change. Do we want to take any questions during the slides, or would you like to wait to the end?
Want to take questions now, or would you rather wait till the end? Ask the committee.
Yeah, I got one. Karen,
Yes.
this was a depreciation. Is that used as a capital schedule replacement?
Yes,
It's a non-cash item otherwise, so.
that's right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. So the depreciation cost that we incur is associated with the value of our assets divided by its useful life, giving us a percentage that we then fund in future years. Okay, so if it's up a wee bit, it just means that the money's going into our reserve to spend in future years.
And we're doing that set of assets or?
100% of infrastructural assets, our plant and equipment, so say vehicles, pumps, that are temporary pumping. All those we have operational depreciation. So that's the same scenario. It's just comes through in a different way. But it's the
Stop
same.
banks are included. Stop banks are included,
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
but it's still the percentage is different. It's only the add-on, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's comes down to how we describe what value of assets that we are going to depreciate. So we recognise with our stock banks that we're not depreciating the ground under the stock bank. We're not depreciating the intense core, we're depreciating the shape on the outside because that's what we renew. Literally add some height and reshape the bank.
And then that's complicated by the 3 yearly revaluation.
Which is market forces that we can't control. But you're absolutely right, it does. We are under the Local Government Act required to do a revaluation exercise. Annually, we're required to do it as a desktop assessment. In other words, what's our future look like in cost change for what the market's telling us? And 3 yearly, we have to actually go through a full project that revises all of our asset value. That's underway now, actually, and will be part of the next application.
So this is the reason why it's gone up in terms of the projected going forward.
Yeah, at the moment, yes, that's the story there. Story, that's the wrong word. That's the words related to the costs that we're incurring. You'll find it's the same impact that's happening in the Waihau Valley scheme as well. To a slightly lesser extent, but same scale.
With your depreciation, are you keeping that in a separate account?
Yes.
So you are keeping your depreciation separate?
So the Piako River scheme.
Yeah.
Under the Local Government Act, which is targeted rate scheme. So all the funds that we gather in for the work that we do, depreciation is separated out and goes into a capital reserve. The operational costs, if we overspend or underspend in the operational space, that goes into an operational. We also have a zone disaster reserve that forms part of our mitigation from flood events. So should we need to make a call on that, and I'll talk about that shortly around the January severe weather event, we can request a withdrawal from that reserve as well. Okay, so yes. What we don't have today available, but should be available for the next committee meeting, is a complete list of values sitting in each of those reserves. And Finance have done a significant piece of work on that recently, but the information is not available yet. So,
Given that depreciation is up in the first 6 months, is that likely to be the same in the second 6 months? So we're likely to see quite an increase in our actual versus our budget.
I've asked that question of our asset management team. They believe there will be a wee bit more, but not, we should not double.
With the electricity cost, Karen, is that if increased, would they come off a contract or?
Yeah, so our electricity costs are impacted, of course, by how much our pumps operate. In particular, we have an agreement with the HDC to support the funding of our diesel powered pumps. So that electricity cost is offset by revenue, which we only see cost here. But in the description and the agenda, it should show you the amount that's offset by cash that we received in. In some instances, it's like $6,000, offsetting like $180,000 of the cost. So there is some of those swings around roundabouts, with our finances, purely because of the relationship we have with our territorial authorities. Not unexpected, just is the difference.
Thank you.
Cool. So this is the Waihau Valley scenario. So you can see we have the same scenario happening in our flood protection activity, but you can see the actuals to the blue to the red, it's less of an impact here. But same scenario apply. We have electricity increases, we have depreciation increases. Activities on the ground are moving along quickly and in a good space. We have a few photographs shortly of work that's being done. So if there's no questions on that, we might flip into some photos. Oh, actually, I think we've got land license next, but yes. Oh, one of the functions that we have available to us these days, and having moved to a financial system a couple of years ago, is the ability for us to look at our works audit. So now when we have a piece of work that comes through, their system creates a work order, identifies the location, the type of work, and estimated cost. That works order goes to the appropriate scheme unit lead to undertake the work. So that piece of work can be tracked through the system. Where is it at? Is it planned? Was it unplanned because it was part of a flood event, something like that? So this gives us a snapshot in time as to what these things look like. So for me, it's a good view to say which teams are under pressure, which teams are okay, how are we going? So what we can see here is saying this bottom graph, work that bright blue at the top and the rectangles, that says work completed. And below that, it talks about the individual teams that have got that workload. So the team on the Thames Valley Drainage on the very right, all of their works order at that point in time had been completed. So what we're saying is that team may have other work to do that's not necessarily a works order, but they've completed all the other stuff that was needed. So you can then say on the true left-hand side for you, the Karakia team is a little bit more pressure. For me, it's like, what does that mean, guys? Do we need to move some stuff? So that's a view that we didn't have in the past. It's a view we've got now. Very helpful from my perspective. What it's saying is that 331 actions have been completed so far this year. Teams. Next slide, please. Some of our images. So this is the Rolleston pump station, you know, in the urban area Thames. This is her coming out on the left and being put back in again a few days later. So cleaned up, tidied up, refurbished and back in the ground. Next slide, please. Something I wanted to raise, just to let you know if you're unaware, we do have some impact sometimes by random members of the public. We had a pump station that had a few rounds of shotgun cartridges thrown at it a few days ago. Of course, the police were advised. We went in to have a look, make sure that the inside of the pump station wasn't as damaged as it looked like from the outside. So it's a bit of work to be done to resolve, but in reality, there's a huge risk to us. You know, we don't know what was going on there and why, but that's just one example on that pump station. There's plenty more holes. And on the right, the fence line looks good. A few days ago, it had no boards on it. Someone stole them all. So examples of costs that we incur that we have to then incur a second time because somebody thinks it's a good idea to take from us and probably put on our fence somewhere else. Next slide, please. So Sarah's here. She's going to be talking about her papers shortly and can answer any specific questions about this. But part of our type protection is that we recognise the scheme land program as cost and in revenue. So we have almost 2,000 hectares of land. We have currently 229 active leases. Sarah's their dedicated lands officer, and we have annual inspections and we record our defects. So we have system that you saw before is system information that we can look at around our defects, which we've got a slide in a moment. Where we have land that's currently not got a lease arrangements on it, we're looking into other alternatives at the moment. It's an ongoing piece of work. And what we can say about our most recent inspections is that our current year's defects have reduced by 31%. So credit to Sarah and the team around digging into that detail, working very closely with their lessees and looking very closely at your own land that's not leased and managing that as well.
Excuse me, Karen, what is the current situation with these stock banks if we have farmers that repeatedly breach the conditions?
Actually, we do have a, what's the right word, Sarah, a process that we can go through to deal with them. And we have in recent times removed leases of some, which take it back, we resolve any issues, and then we may release them.
I'm looking there and you have 31% reductions in defects. So there must have been some issues before.
Yes, but I think we've got a slide
Sorry,
in a
I'll
particular
just-
page that shows we've been decreasing in defects over time.
Also, a large portion of that was, some of those include defects that we're responsible for as well. So with the Fordville upgrade works, there was a lot of defects that were closed off as a result of that. Yeah, but there has been a general decrease in weeds. Farmers have been getting on top of spraying and fixing bullholes. So if there's anyone with more than a couple of defects or repeated times, then we make phone calls, we go and visit and have a chat with them. If the next step is if they're still not resolved, then we let them know we're going to get contracted to come and fix it and then send them for that. And if we still get problems after that, then we see notification that we cancel.
Here's an example of the types of defects we've got for the total at the moment. So as you can see, almost 50% of it's undesirable vegetation. Yeah, so we're working our way through what that looks like. What's that mean? Stock damage is one of the other areas. But when we're talking about totals of defects, what's the total overall? Zero.
I think it's down to about 120. There is a table in the agenda with those numbers.
I'd just like to mention the Fordville stopping between Coburg Bridge and Tuparoa, which since there's been no grazing there, it was put as cut and carry. All that's come from a colossal amount of Karakia, which is now going into some properties. And it just looks affordable. It's just probably the worst piece of stopping got, from my opinion. And I happen to farm at the back of that, so we look at it every day, and it's just not being managed well at all. The contractor that upgraded let clumps of dirt everywhere, so the contractor come along to mow it, so he didn't come back. Bales fell in the board drain, so they can't get a digger in. Bales out, but just parts of it that are not good. Other parts have done really, really good.
We've
Just that area there, the Karakia, which wasn't there.
Yeah.
There's now it's like a steep.
Yeah, we've been in contact, so we've got that on a cut and carry.
Well, part of it's just not practical. It's just too steep and there's not enough room on the bottom. That's what I'm saying. You can't cut it and carry it.
Yeah,
They cut it and it rolls into the bloody drain. And it was never smoothed out so that you put the impacts. Flip the tractor on it.
We'll take that as a comment and have a look at it.
Yeah.
Operationally, we can make changes there.
yeah, there are bits of that that aren't modeled by the contractor. So I'm looking at a maintenance schedule to keep that. We're also looking at, I've been talking with the scheme unit lead for that area, and we're looking at also doing some targeted spraying to get rid of weeds so that we can, cut clean hay from it and not have seeded hay that we're then putting onto new stock banks. And also having a more robust agreement with the contractor that we use for cut and carry so that it is done regularly and it's done when we need it done, so that it's not getting too long. And that's definitely an area of focus for me.
Thank you.
We'll be discussing it in the next presentation.
Go on to the next slide. Oh, so that was our operating program. So we can move to the capital program. So on page 21 to 23, it talks about our finances for the Waihau, being the blue section at the top and the Piako in the bottom. Ultimately, what we have is a large budget, of which we have a significant amount of commitments already. So in other words, purchase orders, work underway, that's not yet paid. And what we have is a number of significant projects per zone, scheme. And a lot of those I've got photos of next to talk about the actual work. So what we can be certain of is that we have this well managed as a program. We have this we've alluded to previously. We have paid them now in a role where we have a very strong capital program. We understand what is able to be achieved versus the amount of funding we have for the year. We have a really strong program. Any questions on the finances before we move to the slides? Other slides? Oh, thank you, Jordan. This is the Cox's floodgate on the Waihau scheme, so through Left Bank, just in the area you were talking about, Roger. This is the image now from a drone photograph. And the next image, if we go to the next slide, is a conceptual slide about what's about to happen. That floodgate and structural audit recognise it's a full replacement required. So what is removed here is the old floodgate arrangement. Into the right on an angle, we'd be locating the new floodgate and what we'd be doing in the changes to the sediment traps on the riverside of that. That's a project that's underway at the moment. Conceptual, of course, it's yet changed on the ground. We're in the process of investigations just about complete. We've got a design to kick off and then construction for this summer. So we will be working with the Hauraki Rail Trail on this because this fix the trail that's on that side. Okay, but this has been a project and program until we roll out. Okay.
So is that a wall gate with a bridge, or is it actually a culvert? That slide.
The intent is that we're looking through design to make the decision.
The old gate. I mean, what?
Oh, the old gate is a culvert, box culvert.
It was the first one put in the scheme.
Yeah. Yeah. We're looking at design possibly being a sheet pile wall gate. We're not certain yet. There are a lot of benefits cost-wise to go that way.
Definitely.
Okay, next slide, please. Piako River right bank, so Ngāti Paparoa side. This is a 3-year good weather, fingers crossed, good weather, 3 consecutive summers. So we've completed the scoping and investigation work that identified areas along that breach between Ngāti and Paparoa where the stock bank was under stress from a structural integrity perspective, recognising either too close to the river or structural recognition about do we adjust the berm or do we lift the stock bank, move her away and reconfirm the drilling at a later date. So there's a mix of works going on there, but we're in year 1, phase 1 of that project, which is recognising that to move the stock bank inward towards the land, we actually need to move the tow drain first. So that's an image taken just a couple of weeks ago of the tow drain being moved. Along with that, of course, it's any fencing required and access track being put in with culverts to support the haul road to come. That's on the next slide. Again, 3-year project, $7 million estimated budget, of which we were fortunate enough to get this into tranche 2 of the shovel ready program, $2 million. So from a road park perspective, good outcome, long-term outcome. So next slide, please, Jordan. Next two slides show you what we're doing around the culverts and the preparation for the Hall Road to upgrade the spot bank south or move and upgrade the other bits that we're not moving over the next 2 summers. So that's a standard one that's completed already. And the next one is a slightly larger culvert, not yet completed at Johnson's pump station, because this will be a turning point. So we made this one a bit wider. And so a lot of this information is scoped and planned well before we get to the on-ground works. So this piece of work, the current contractor will be finished this month for this year. And then we'll go into a new round of procurement for the construction works for the next 2 years. Of the $7 million, 1.7, 1.8 of that will have been spent this year. So it's still a significant amount of money for the next 2 years. Moving on to other forms of capital work that we do. So this is floodgate outlets, driving poles, gun poles in particular, to support the shape and behaviour of those outlets. We've also got willow tree removal work going on to support, where they have been falling into the much streams that the outlets. So it's kind of BAU everyday work for council. What we have is floodgate space frames being replaced. Supports the integrity of the pump station, but also safety from a staff perspective. And we've also got the narrow pump motor replacement. Even on the right. Next slide. Kapakapi Dam inlet on the screen. This is to help the fact that we do get a significant amount of debris come down that catchment during the flood events. It's a huge risk to us if that gets blocked. It's a stream. We need that to continue to work. So we've altered what that screen looks like.
What's the gap on those?
What's the width of the gap?
It's a very good question on an off top of my head. I'd have to find out for you.
The hoses in there?
No.
The hose is just cleaning it out at that point in time?
What I can tell you is behind the screen is a plug with a restrictor plate on it, so it restricts the flow down to 780 mils with an outlet's 800. So anything that does go in will get out.
So it's about safety for the downstream side.
300 gaps.
A lot of gaps down there. Next slide, please. Fall prevention works is a significant part of the information that we've been gathering through our annual condition inspections. Here's an example of work that we've been done around reducing the likelihood of falls and the injury that could come from those around sluice gates and floodgate sides, railing, walkways, etc. So that's one example. Willow floodgate, if you know where that one is. Next slide, please. This is a smaller version, different style, but it's again the same reasons for doing the work. This one had a bit of a ramp. There's a depth there underneath. You can see the risk of tripping and falling needs to be removed. Health and safety of our staff. You've got to remember they could be there daylight or in the dark.
And since we've got 2 Hauraki councillors in the room, I hope we're still hearing the safety information that it's needed, so they don't actually have to go and redesign it themselves. They can actually work on it and back that up, because they don't need to be writing another health and safety report and operate on it.
Ultimately, there's requested input, but there's also whatever information we've got.
Yeah,
information
they can receive, because that's really important.
That'd be right to Steve Wheel. That'd be right in your wheelhouse.
Next slide, please. I think that's getting close to the end. So H drain, our inlet work. So we've got some rock revetment going on there, supporting the flow gate. So it's kind of BAU stuff. The end. Oh, okay. So that's the end of kind of what is our standard BAU year, 6 months for our programs at the moment. What I wanted to add on, which is not in your agendas, because the information wasn't really available at the time that the agenda was put together. It's just a bit of a quick overview of what happened in the January severe weather event. So what the resilience team have been able to provide us with is information about how much rainfall we got in the catchments, where it ended, and therefore why did we see our schemes operate the way they did. So to be honest, the Piako River scheme got a bit of water, but the Waihau Valley scheme through the Aoheinimurri from Waihau through was pumped. So we've got in here the Aoheinimurri at Queen's Head, more than 100-year level event. Hence the river itself has been cleaned out. A lot of berm and river shape has changed. A lot of that material has moved. I'll show you a couple of slides shortly that shows you that we know some of it's gone, but we don't know all of it's gone. But ultimately, we have a challenge now to understand what has changed in that river. The fact that we know this information now does give us the opportunity to understand what are the costs incurred through that event and could we make a call on our zone and regional disaster service. That's a discussion need to be had, but ultimately, because it's more than 100-year event, we do have that right to do that. So that will be coming back to you for further information shortly. Next slide, please. So you'll be aware of the Blue Gates in Pyro that supports that 026. This was later on after the major weather had passed. You can see the wee white dot here. That's where Cyclone Gabriel people want water hit. This actually was above that. This is a few hours down the track after the event, so the water's starting to recede. So this event was more significant than Cyclone Gabriel for this catchment. What it's done is left a whole lot of debris on that fence line that you'll see through there if you're driving through Pyro. We have a plan because that land where the goalposts are or the soccer field, the Hauraki district don't want to lease it anymore. So the plan to manage that, so that fence line will be removed and I think we're putting bollards along there. Stop people getting in, but it saves us kind of catchment of debris in a future event.
Only thing I brought up in council a couple of times what happened in that weather event, and I was highly disappointed that Higgins didn't turn up to support our staff to shut the road. And I've clearly stated numerous times in council, and there's 2 councillors here, there needs to be something done to shut down State Highway 26 at Porotahuna Road. And I hope that you will support that happening, that the staff in Pyro will have to make it clear that if they're to operate that bridge, there cannot be trucks and other things coming down towards it, asking it to open the gate again to get through. Yeah. That's not your job. Your job is actually to shut the gates and keep the community safe. So I've brought it up, I think 3 or 4 times in council now. Yep. That this is a real priority to get some direction for who the hell needs to put some sort of shutdown system at the corner of Porotahuna and Highway 26. Evidently.
Even one of those information boards.
Yeah, just like they have up Northland where they have flashing lights, road closed. That's all it needs to be, but something simple like what you got Northland, every little cattle road's got, going out to Mungawai. It's amazing, but we need something there to say this road is closed. Please do not proceed. But anyway, that's just for your guys' safety, that has to happen as far as I can see.
To be honest, it was quite concerned of mine during the time too, because, didn't have enough staff
Yeah.
to manage that as well as everything else.
Going down as an action for this committee to follow up, if somebody needs to be actually formally talking to NZTA.
So through you, so ourselves and Hauraki District are making a joint approach to NZTA. It is their responsibility to be providing the service, and it's not the first time we've been down. So, as you rightly point out, it needs to be resolved. It is a matter that NZTA needs to take up to ensure their contractors provide the legal service that's necessary.
Well, I'm just worried that we're going to have to go and do government, we're going to have to go and do traffic management training for our staff, and I don't want that to happen. I'd rather it be a function that the road is closed, end of story. Yeah, it's not our, we're going to be doing jobs that we're not meant to do, other people pay. Yeah, I think we should put that down as an action, or we should actually put a motion for that the committee supports council, both regional council and Hauraki in making that happen. Yeah.
Either capture it as we'll capture it as an action.
Yeah.
So it's committee and pros.
Yeah. Okay.
Those discussions.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So I'm not sure if you all saw this on social media, but look at the debris on that bridge. So there was a very unhappy girl coming through that gorge. So for our perspective, it's like what happened to that material. So next couple of slides kind of show one impact that we're aware of that we're managing. And that's one of the flow gates between the end of the gorge and Karakia town. It's going to work for you, Jordan. That was blocked totally with the rivers and the distance where the trees are, but the floodgate's got no outlet left. And the next slide shows you what it looks like in a close-up perspective. So literally all this material's been dropped there. Actually, there was an outlet here right through to the river. So has it been dug out?
I got that.
Yep. Dug out to remove that material. Yeah. So that's come through the river and dropped at this point where obviously the flow is reduced enough to do that. But we're unsure because of the level of the river as to where else this might still be a problem. So it's one example of costs that we have incurred. So that complete what I have from a flood protection operational and capital discussion today. Is there anything that anyone would like to discuss before we move on?
But if no one's got anything, just one other thing. After the events a week after, myself and Greg and myself, Karen and
Yes.
we went on that. I seriously think we need to do something about the height of those poplars on the Waiho River. That even if we just clip the top out of them and go back another couple of years and clip another bit out, that we don't have a whole lot of material we have to move. If we could start clipping it, because some of them are getting really big, and we don't want to get to the point where they're monsters and then we've got to pull the whole tree out. Of actually doing something about, sorry, I suppose I shouldn't. What is going to be your management of dealing with this in the near future? It's a good question, because there's some serious issues. We do not want to see big poplars.
You're learning.
Thank you. I will take the one and give it to the government.
We've got an annual plan at the moment. Well, you're not going to get in that, but a long-term plan. There must be some better. Got to do something about the management of those in the near future.
Yeah. Yes, I'll have a discussion about what the risk is.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Karen, Karen, just in the agenda on capital program, talk a little bit about the offshore rationalisation, but maybe just a few comments on where we're at that.
Okay. So if you can imagine, the last 4.5 years, we completed the asset rationalisation on the eastern side, which was the Aronga, Campbell's and factory floodgates. So we have a new asset there, new way of the drainage and flood protection working together. The complete opposite side of the mouth of the Piako River, we have the Marshall's floodgate, Apple Tree Pump Station, and the Reserve, thank you very much, floodgate. That catchment is a totally different shape, it's long, skinny. So there's a discussion, we've done a scoping document to understand what our challenges are, because the reserve floodgate doesn't seem to operate ever under any sort of circumstances. It must be very extreme if it does. Marshall's has been having some challenges, and Apple Tree as a pump has had some outlet pipe issues. So we did an investigation of that. What we have is the answers to those at the moment. So we're just looking at the next stage of design. Well, what should be designed, should I say? So there's nothing critical that cannot be resolved in some ways, like the Apple Tree Pump Station, put new pipes in there. We can look at the shape and design of the internal drainage to get to our Marshall's floodgate and make sure that we're bringing levels of service. So part of that investigation has been the development of a model, a hydraulic model for the area. So we've got that information now. It's been ground truth, so we can understand and can trust it. That out of that we can come in decisions about what's next in design. That's where that's at the moment.
That hydraulic model be shared with Hauraki District Council. You'll see there's a reference to
absolutely.
levels of service for that particular area. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Because to be honest, all that internal drainage is not ours, but we understand how it operates to help the model tell the truth for what it is now, and therefore what could we tweak to make it work better. But yes, absolutely, that's one of the next stages of HDC, need to be in the room with us having a conversation.
Have you looked at the Karakia station, which was in the Karakia, sort of linked to the same link? That floodgate doesn't, it's never been clear. It was voice pumping, it's part of that.
It's not part of that review, but part of Waikato Regional Council's resilience is an undertaking of a regional model. So our model is just specific to that catchment. That regional model is going to give us the ability to deep dive into instances like that.
Okay.
So it's only a list, you understand, you know, the challenges are there. Yeah, we just need that regional model to be completed. And that, I think, it's the end of this year. I think it's timeline for that.
Yeah, Karen, just like to go back to the point that Roger raised earlier about the hay that's collected and then used for protection and reseeding, that sort of thing. Is there any reason why we can't use dry silage? So not just wet silage, but that way the material will be inert. And in your previous slide, you talked about there's a lot of weed issue in the market. And to me, you're going to build a hay barn, you're going to got a weed issue, and I fully back Roger's concern that spreading weed by having poor quality material to spread on the repatriation of stock banks and that sort of thing is an absolute no-no. So is there any chance that we could use payment to make the material inert for a start and sort out weed problems?
Well, I'm pretty sure that, well, we're not experts in that space, and I know there is certain people around who definitely are. So I believe that there's nothing off the table. We would be open to probably holding a bit more of a workshop around how can we best undertake this activity, whereas in reality the activity is a strategic review of not having animals manage the vegetation growth. We're doing something else to manage that vegetation growth. So what does it look like? So
He's actually talking about haylage.
yeah,
So it's a hybrid between hay and silage that heats up, and all the seed in it will be killed from the heating process in the bale. So that's what it's just to make sure you understand what he's talking about.
So that's definitely something we can discuss. We'll definitely put it on as an option for discussion. It's not, we want the best outcome, not just an outcome.
Can I just follow to that, because we can put all the procedures in, but a contractor comes along and I've got to mow down. The guy on the tractor who's mowing just mows, he doesn't care what he mows. That's what I've seen in the marketplace. So there's all sorts of stuff goes in.
As Karen said, she's prepared to workshop this. You've got two agriculture contractors sitting in the room that have spent, I know Keith spent mostly 15 years and I've spent 25 years in the agriculture industry, contracting, cutting solids, doing groundwork. So you've definitely got some knowledge in the room that will sort this out. So I think that's as far as it needs to go. Rich.
Just
Brian.
the current, I've got the same as what Roger's saying, really, I mean, we used to be able to graze it, now it's 8 hectares of Scotch thistle, Swedish grass and Betherton and bush grass. Who wants to, we talk, Steve's done a good job of trying to spray it and part of it, but it's, the other is still.
I think the same thing. It's if you're going to be using it for cut and carry, maybe it needs to be sprayed every autumn with some form of partial clean, and then because no one's going to be there to manage it. So that's the sort of thing that when we workshop it, we've got to talk about, and that will resolve most of these issues. Most of those weeds will go over a 10-year period with a spray program. If that's what you want to, how you want to manage it, that's the sort of things we've got to discuss. So they don't need to get into the detail. I think we need to, like Karen said, workshop this out and get onto it in the future, how to manage it correctly.
It's a small bit.
Yeah.
So just another question. Karen, in your notes there, the land drainage program benefits the area was 178,000 hectares. Is there any monetary value put on that? Because what we have, and Noel and Robbie will be bringing this to your attention, is that we're going into with the reform of the local body. There's going to be a lot of pressure on us. I'm a rate player and I've got facilities on my farm to carry all the burden, and it's really important that the rest of the communities carry their fair share of the burden of flood protection and drainage. So it would be really good to have that monetised, to say, hey, this is the value it's bringing into the community, into the region.
Those papers are coming to you for us to do in council, Keith.
Are they?
Yeah. So yeah. So you've jumped the gun, but yeah, me and Noel been bringing this up for 3 years.
Yeah.
And that's actually how should drainage be funded more of the wider community, because at the moment it's 100% target rate, and it should be more like flood protection where it's the community's contributing maybe 20% into it. So you're going to hear that this year. The guy sitting 2 down from you, Ruben, there is the guy that actually, if you go into a meeting, every time he says how much drainage
I think you'll find this on the next
is,
slide.
how much drainage actually benefits the Waikato region. So you're talking to the converted next to you, mate.
So on that note, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Just on page 22, it's Karakia stock.
Yeah.
It looks very good. What's the asbestos down there?
I haven't got any photos, then I think I have photos from the last meeting. We believe it's some form of a building and a whole lot of other garbage was in the stockbag. So when work was done to start the upgrade of the top down, so we moved it to the side, covered it up, the concrete and finished. So that's the price to remove it. It's not acceptable by that. We went to a third party and got that resolved. So that's all gone now. And the access street has been put in, so we completed that project and that reached the ministry plus $1.7 million. That funded it.
Looks good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, yes.
Thank you.
Ruben.
Yeah, that's it. So you next to.
Good morning, Chair, and other members of the committee and councillors. So my name's Ruben Mills, who's Land Drainage Manager. And in terms of this is the benefit for, we think, for the whole of the Waikato, 180,000 hectares. So that's, you know, and for me, that is significant to the area. So like they say, was going to be an inevitable report, but yes, so every time they land a targeted rate to cover all the costs in there, I think that we should be shared not only at a regional but a national level that reflects the benefit to the region and the country. Sure. So yes, so, and I'd just like to remind people of that, how important our drainage schemes are really.
And if I remember, Ruben, 25% of the GDP from the Waikato comes from the region's area.
Yeah. So it is, I mean, it is significant. And I guess the other thing is that it's a services provided through a partnership with the landowners. So, you know, we are talking with those landowners, private land, all the drains are on private land to get access, but also there are ears and eyes as well as our guys going out to look at the drain centres. We're anticipating that the landowners will give us a call and say, hey, there's an issue here at the time. Because our target is to machine clean approximately 10% of the drainage network if required on an annual basis. Sometimes that runs between 4 and 7. You don't clean when you don't need to, and our landowners are going, our eyes and ears out there in terms of that. So it's entirely, like we say, funded from targeted rates. So if any rates that aren't spent during those periods go back into the reserve. So they don't go back into the general pool, I guess, is the key thing. Total drainage scheme across the areas is about 1,500 drains and 2,060 kilometres of drainage itself across 84 separate drainage areas. So it's a big network across, you know, Lower Waikato, Central Waikato, Thames Valley. It's critical to the region that we keep them open and operational and flowing so that we can, one, I guess the main target is to be able to grow pasture. So water off pasture within 3 days. This is legal service that we target for. Yeah. Now, Thames Valley land drainage in particular has 9 subdivisions and 4 special areas, which is for the pump stations in that sort of thing. So we've got a total length of about 760 kilometres in Thames Valley. Their teams are looking after. Next slide, thanks. Okay, so a quick financial overview. Like most of the other areas, we're running at about 40% of the spend at the end of the season. And that reflects the work program at that time. So we would expect it to be about there. Sometimes it's up, but sometimes it's down, but depending on where there's some storm damage to deal with. Yeah, so looking through here is the different areas through in Thames. This is the one on the phone. Next slide, thanks, Jordan. Okay, so land drainage finances. So we're looking here in these areas here, you've got Waihau that's up a bit in terms of the spend itself. And that reflects some issues that we need to deal with in finances. So the spend is up is because we've got some labour costs that need to be reduced in there and some charges in there should be. So by the 30th of June for the financial year, we'll have the corrected financial or the corrected financials available. But in general, we're sitting there about where we would think we should be, ready for our, I guess, our autumn programs. That's farming, machine cleaning.
Just kind of financials. Where are they going to be recoded to?
Well, some of them are. We just had a wrong rate for labour, so that would be corrected and reversed out. Some of the labour was in some of the wrong, which is not the bigger issue, would be going back out to flood protection. Yeah, because you can't do that. I can't do that until I talk to the scheme manager who says this is where it should come. So it's got to be a collaborative approach as to where that works done. it's not just taken out and put where I think it is, it's got to be viewed with the scheme. Yeah, that goes. So thanks. Okay, so just in terms of the operational metrics, we're sitting at about 4% of the spend. We're delivering the services by using contractors and our staff across there. So we're doing 4 subs and our contractors are doing 5 subs. We had a new contractor on last year. They're picking up much better this year in terms of that. So that's looking quite good. And we're seeing a little bit of cost come down as well because they get more familiar to do it. So we've sprayed about 135 kilometres and the contractors have done 301 in December. Machine cleaning, we've done about 4% of the area. As you know, we don't machine clean everything. Machine cleaning is required. And we've achieved our level of service, which is getting water off pasture, stormwater off pasture within 3 days up to the 10-year storm. We saw from Karen in the Thames Valley drainage channel project that they had done 100% of their works orders for the season, which means they've been very successful. So 25 season has been very successful with the fencing, planting, shaping of drains. Planting installed across 5 subdivisions in the areas. All landowners have signed the agreements, so they're fully installed, and 26 season is all fully subscribed. But other people interested in joining it as well, plenty of fun, potentially into the next year. So there is momentum growing around planting plants and characters to reduce the amount of maintenance required in the future on drainage.
There's still 2 more years to go in that funding all the way, not just 1.
Maybe 2 years.
So that's half government funded.
There's this year that's funded.
Is it $1 million we play out of the trench fund?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, $1 million. Yeah.
It's $1 with funds.
So level of service. These events that are happening. You talk about level of service and the 10-year experience, etc. So that baseline of 10-year events was set some many years ago because that level of service hasn't changed.
Level of service hasn't changed as far as I'm aware.
So are these events seemingly more frequent and larger? What consideration given to that operational model of 10-year events? Because I think I'm sort of being asked what is council doing about that level of service, because these events are happening and get bigger more regularly. Is the level of service model that we have across the region anymore? So that's a good question for today.
It is a big question. The level of service targets getting pasture off, water off pasture to keep pasture growing within the 3 days up to the 10 years. What we do try to do is to be prepared for storm events coming through if we can. And that means making sure that we've got some weed outside of the pumping capacity so that we can accept the water through to our floodgates for pumps. Often it depends on the receiving water as to whether we can drain away any storm water. So especially down in these areas where you've got a tidal effect, it's harder. Upland around Aircape, it's the same with the tidal effect and rainwater trapped inside. Like at a river through there, Mangawait's the same as well. If that's up, then you're holding water inside the stem itself, or inside the drainage area.
Just a point that I don't think we really cover, but after the recent event at Oklahoma, this is general information for everyone. Our staff were briefing, gave us a briefing a few days afterwards, and he was going through all the modelling that he was doing as that storm was approaching. And his modelling showed the dump that was going to happen in Lake Rahonga. And no alert had come out from Met Service, so he contacted them. And an hour later, they confirmed that he was actually correct. So it gave me, and I'm certain that other councils felt assured, that our staff are doing the best they can. And if our staff are doing better than Met Service, I think that's a credit to them. And also, just maybe disappointed in the Met Service, but I think you should take heart that our guys are anticipating just on what we've been saying, that they're trying to foresee what's going to happen and actually take action to prevent this. So they've just decided on that issue.
Yeah, and they do. So the forecasting out of our flood rate is improving, and that's because we know our region and our modelling is getting better. So we can see it coming down. So they knew what was going to happen at the Y part, they knew what was going to happen at the point, and they knew where the systems were in terms of that. So it's critical information in terms of our people.
But it was a 1,250 year event, I think it's pretty big.
Yeah, in some places, because it was quite localised, very much like, Hooneybury was there, very localised in Golden Valley. It's coming through.
For the members that are sitting here that are on the Hauraki Adaptation Plan meeting, so that's exactly what we're talking about here, when they were talking about a 1 in 10. And what's the other way of saying it? Not that I was trying to explain that night. Instead, it's any 3 days of 1 year it can occur.
Yeah, like a 100-year event can actually happen on 3.65 days in the year. Yeah. So it can happen every year over 3.65 days. There's this. I hate the use of the 10-year and the 100-year and the 200 because it actually can happen every year. And I just.
That's what I was trying to explain to you guys in that Hauraki meeting the other night, but it's not a 1 in 10.
So so 10% is 36.5 days a year, every year.
With the 1 in 10 year event, is that a fixed number of, say, a rainfall 1 in 10 year event is 50 mils or 80 mils, or is that moving with the averages?
So the way the flood areas and different subdivisions they work out by an amount of rainfall across that area that would produce some runoff. From that goes into channel sizes and culvert sizes within extending. So yeah, that's the way that there is a particular amount of rain for a certain amount of time over an area.
So, but as the averages move, say the events, rain events are becoming, like our average rainfall really hasn't shifted, but the size of our rain events has. Is 1 in 10 year event moving with the average, or is it still fixed?
It's still fixed. And it's still, so that's my point, is that we actually, as those events become more frequent and localised, our level of service being lifted to match that.
Well, the thing is, though, we can't predict when that localisation is going to be until the next year is.
But it's the wrong place to have the conversation. You need to have it in your adaptation plan of what the level of service the community want to pay for. And Hauraki are going through that now, and that's where it needs to be. We cannot state what a community level of service is. They have to decide, and the rate needed to hold at that level is what you've got to pay. So there's the right place they're having it is on that adaptation thing.
In terms of the Thames Valley, where the drainage bed, with the maintenance that they're doing now, it's really very, very good. The problem comes when it goes through a stockade and or the rivers. So that's where the real issue starts, isn't it? But I'm really happy how it's working in the area. Thames Valley.
So we do regular step reviews for our flood protection, and we consider the impacts of climate change. So in other words, how much of the stat's moving. That helps us to make decisions around what the future of our assets might like, whether we have to build stop banks, but bigger pumps, that kind of thing. I think it's a good question around drainage, because what's that is other drains. We maintain it to how they've been sized in the past based on those levels of service. I do have the stats that are moving, and so ultimately that, I guess, that risk profile will see more frequent flooding over time. And the question for us, and the question for our community is when does that cross the threshold where it starts to be unacceptable, we need to actually consider something different.
Well, I look at it like this too, though, that the scale of drains is naturally just changing on its own. That like urbanisation in areas where the runoff is getting greater, all of a sudden drain that I used to be jump across as a kid is now 3 metres wide. You've got to swim across it. But, you know, like the scheme itself is growing within its own natural water coming down it. And that causes issues as well. But
You do hear challenges with urbanisation. And you've got a lot of fast track projects around the area that are looking at on the edges of the cities and towns. Frequently that's at the start of our sort of drainage network. So we are interacting with all of those sort of things. Okay, so next slide, thanks. Okay, so we've just gone into some pictures really around some of the business as usual work for us. So really just some drains, and it's just showing a bit of drain work in terms of discussions with landowners. And we can't put everything up there, but this was a drain that the guys had recently done through there and done some cleaning up. Next slide, thanks, Julie.
everybody boys are used to seeing works like that.
Yeah, so you've got, these drains here. This is where we did some of the planting around there for the project. I've been out with some landowners that are interested in this, so there's less need for drain cleaning, and you've got some area under there, so there's less weed growing. So it's quite useful. So again, in the future, it's something that could be extended. I'm across that with the team working well and doing well out there. So this was a little bit about being prepared for the anniversary event in January, where the teams sort of did some clearing, of the North Road pump just to let water to come through it. So it's just an example of the teams here, knowing that there's an event coming through. We didn't get hit with that one, but we're prepared because it stayed mostly on the eastern side of the county. You can drive across the river and see it on this side. It was the same in Waikato through those things where they get prepared for the event coming through the wood. But I understand the fence coming through, time concentration on each of the catchments of where it's coming to. Because I always say to the guys, are we prepared? What we should be worried about? And they said, actually, we're okay. The systems are in. We're not expecting anything for 3 days. Here, we're not expecting anything for 3 to 6 hours. There's a difference in the way people look at it. That's it. Happy to discuss further if I like to as well.
Any question? The one about drain plant. With the issues we've got down Hauraki Plains, on Hauraki Plains for this, but with turnip kills and that with hot water, warm water. So are we going to try next time we go for a round of funding, go do it with Hauraki to try and do some more planting around some of our major floodgates and stuff for turnip, because we botulism and those other issues we had down there in the last 3 or 4 years. Is that something we're looking at in the future?
We don't currently have a plan to do that, but there's no.
Well, we did in the Green Corridor. We were planning on doing some of that, but it sort of died off. That's why I'm just asking the question. It's
always an opportunity.
Well, I just like in the next time we go for deluge funding on tranche 3, it's most probably something to work with Hauraki to have a long-term benefit of drainage outlets down the Hauraki Plains. I think it's most probably a good idea. You agree?
Yeah, nothing's picking up on the initiatives like the asset rationalisation project. Like that's along down by the blockade is an example from a refuge that's been created. It's all good to plant and drain up, but it's quite dry.
Yeah.
Whereas if we think about it, quite a system creating its refuges, that's where you get real.
The issue down here is when we get a floodgate that's blocked for silt and it can't get out, and the tuna are there and boiling hot water, and there's huge fish by it.
And there's the recent changes around the hold for risk around another species as well. There's an opportunity there that we've been mindful of, but haven't been forced into action for. So that's another opportunity. We can jointly take a regional approach, no matter who the local authority representative is that does it.
Is there anything in this talk that we're doing another tranche 3?
There is tranche 3 at the moment.
Yeah.
It has had to be closed quite substantially. We don't have the drainage, I don't think we have drainage budget work in that particular one. Look, I mean, it's
maybe it's
I mean, we don't necessarily have to fix funding as well, because the question that you're asking is about how we do our capital projects as well. We have to how we do them and do exactly what we did with the asset rationalisation project. It was great that we could get funding for it, obviously the costs, but there's nothing stopping us anything. How we do other projects.
Well, there's other organisations we can go to running anyway.
Yep.
MPI and all others.
Lotteries, stuff.
It's not a huge cost either.
No, but it's something we should be working together, since we got you two in the room today and talking about, you can go back and say, we're talking about it, so start to get together and have a chat. Thank you. And move on to the, on the wheel. So we're going to have a mover for the flood protection and drainage work program, please.
Yeah.
Injury and Peter. All in favour? Aye. Against? Eric, thank you.
Already been a bit of discussion around this one, so it's good. Yeah, so there were just some questions raised at the last meeting around mowing on the foreshore, so thought it would be a good opportunity just to talk about that and share what we do, and yeah, and also the need for some kind of storage, or have a discussion about the mulch, the hay, yeah. Okay, so just over 95% of scheme land in the Hauraki Plains is grazed, and just under 5% now is on a cut and carry. Yeah. So these are the, on the right, it's the gross income from each of those. So this, just bear in mind, those numbers for mowing and baling don't also take into account the cartage and contractor fees. So once those are taken into account, they're roughly on a par with how much income there is from those. Next slide, please. So there's benefits for both methods. The grazing is, the risk is shared across multiple licensees. It's, you know, for remote or steeper stop banks, then grazing them is much easier when you can't get machinery. And also it's just a lot easier having conscientious and reliable farmers grazing. You know, sometimes there's multi-generational farmers on that land, so it's a low effort way of maintaining stop banks. And with the mowing, so on the foreshore, for example, it's a lot of dog-owned land down there, so you know, they were keen for us not to be grazing it and putting nutrients back into waterways down there. So we've put that on a mowing schedule, and so there's around about 90 hectares of land now that we cut and carry across the area. So about, I think, about 90% of the bales that we cut last year, which is about 550 bales we got from all of that land, that was used on stop bank upgrades with mulching. So there was about 10% that weren't used, that ended up sitting out and pretty much unusable now. So that's why we were looking at the shed option. So next slide, please. So this is just an example of what we were looking at. And there was option for a concrete floor. Just thought I'd throw everything in there for people to have a look at, review. But yeah, around about 100,000. That's with contingency in there as well, for an 18 metre by 10 metre shed, just to store whatever we have left over. There's going to be a stream of upgrades into the future on stock banks. So, and we're not likely to use all of the hay that we currently produce. So we just wanted an option that we can maintain that in a good usable order, whether for ourselves or to sell to private landowners. Yeah, so that's pretty much all for that. So were there any questions? And once again, I know we discussed about a working group to talk about those. So happy to also do that.
Yeah, through you, Robin. It's a bit of an awkward one because the grazing gives you grief in the winter time. But when you cut and carry, you got to do it 2 or 3 times. And how do you get on when it's wet? Like when you get a huge winter growth, late winter growth, cut and carry, early September, you've got grass, long grass. It's too hard to do anything with it that time of the year.
Yeah, and we just have that. It comes down to just have to manage it. Keep in communication with the contractor. If it's dry enough, actually go out and walk over the stock bank and think, is it dry enough to mow or is it not? We're going to have to wait. So yeah, we're going to put in place a bit of an agreement to have with the contractor, just to allow for all of those factors, have a required number, make sure that they're not out there when it's too wet, and just managing that.
Well, to me, it'd be a huge safety issue because you have quite a gradient.
Yeah.
You get that wet marine clay.
Yeah.
You go in there in September.
Yeah.
Not to cut it.
But you have the option to leave, they wouldn't see. It's not like it's going to be milking chapter, it's just going to go in the mulch. So you just wait until it it's.
So why don't you just mulch it?
Yeah,
And leave it there?
Yeah, but then they want to cut and carry it so they can use it and
Not all of it.
okay.
Just those difficult bits, just mow it and with a mulching mower.
Oh, yeah,
And
well,
that's it.
that's
It's good organic mix.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's a cost saving.
Yeah.
And you don't need to build a shed. I mean, if you can predict how much you need each year, you could mulch the rest. And it's your internal use.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we're also giving hay we're selling hay to Waikato for their bank.
I've just got weeds in it.
Yeah, that's the problem.
No, but I think this, like I said, I think we can manage that by spray, like by sound of it, some of these banks need to be sprayed regularly with pasture clean and other things. So I think we can resolve the issues that this is actually feed. Some of it I look at it as when I was a contractor, I'd be cutting carrying this stuff about 6 times a year whenever possible. And if you're selling some baleage, I reckon we could double that amount of baleage that we're selling. If we actually cut it regularly and actually not
with quality.
Yeah, with quality.
Very much. Only thing there with the cut and carries, it does raise one other issue. It's the debris that you collect, glass bottles, tin cans, aluminium. And that doesn't do livestock much good if you're going to try and sell it. I'm more in favour of what Keith said before about haylage or baleage, and then working out what the council needs for its banks, and then composting the rest of it, making it into compost and actually cashing in that way, rather than having storage facilities. Because as always, you build one, it's not big enough, so you've got to build another one, and then you build another one. So if you do baleage, you just use what you use. If you haven't used it in 2 years, it goes to compost.
So I think what we'll do is we'll have a bit of a workshop and have a look at the different options and what is going to be the most cost effective and best way forward for that. So
Can we, the workshop, probably have to go and have a look at where the problem is, because I think we should stop thinking, I understand the root issues. Don't do it, don't office building.
Can I just also put in observation that contractors always take the easiest route. So I think might be bailiffs. Sorry, Keith. Right, so there's a cycleway around parts of the stockbank and the contractors take a short track around the bail over the cycleway. So the edge of the baler is bouncing up and they're not going to slow, bouncing up and down on the edge of the berm of the top of the stockbank. It isn't a good look. And that's going to create an issue later in life, which is a cost that we don't really need. So we need to be able to set out some quite rigid rules around what they can and can't do with stockbanks, especially where there's a cycleway. Because the amount of heavy traffic that's gone around the back of my place is just ridiculous. And it's just being built up.
There will already be some rules on that potential stockbank, won't we, regarding the cycleway?
yeah, we have, well, there's an agreement with HDC about maintenance along there.
I'd just like to just get a feel of the pressure from, I guess it's DOC, in terms of the supposed nutrient imposition on their site from cattle or that, because if it's dry stock, it's a nil sum game. They're not bringing extra on, and when you take them off, they take the nutrient off on full feed. So I think there's a bit of a red herring sitting there in terms of maintenance. And if Roger's right, some of it's too steep. Why are we grazing it? You know, why be locked into something that's a bit fictitious in terms of the nutrient aspect of grazing on stockbank? Because you're not putting fertilizer on, I guess, and you're taking animals off, so that's taking nutrient off. So it's a bit of a red herring.
Yeah. And, Kenny knows more about nutrient like stuff. But yeah, that agreement was in put in place before my time, so I'm not sure exactly what the was.
So can we have that sooner rather than later?
Yeah.
Seriously, just to, we've got to. So the purpose of this paper was to talk about a potential future business case, I suppose it would be for investment in a storage shed for anticipated demand. We're going to be turning up reducing haulage. The recommendation is to be amended to undertake a workshop with the committee to have a talk about in more general terms how we do this, how we manage our land. There's a lot of expertise around the table before we ultimately end up in a position to decide whether or not a storage shed is necessary or not.
Yeah.
But this was something that was put to you quickly in this piece because this would be a fair long-term plan. That we brought up in 6 months' time. Budget. But we'll even discuss it. That's good to have script from the committee. Is that what I'm hearing? Yep. So the Hauraki workshop on scheme land management. Carry
Non-grace.
Yeah.
non-grace. Yep. Scheme land, scheme land management for non-graze land.
Right.
Not graze. In dash graze. Dash graze. Land.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we'll be able to make a strong decision about the need for shed upwards.
Everyone in favour of that? Yeah, that's one. Sorry, I was asking to move. Andrew and yours. Roger. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. No, didn't we ask for the lead? Yeah.
All right, so now move on to the next slide. This was something we'll bring back to yourselves after the discussion last time in August.
Yeah.
I think just note that we will update the recommendation there. Recommendation at the front of the page 49. Sorry, 50. It's on there. We've got receiving paper. And supporting the intent to purchase this land going forward. This is all based on further business case information that's being presented to you today. So that recommendation is correct.
That's correct.
Yes,
I think that happened last time too.
Yeah. So on page 50 of your agenda, you'll see the recommendation.
Perfect.
So yes, Sarah, you want to take us through?
So just a bit of repeat from the meeting from last August. There was some requests from that last meeting that we create a business case, come back with some numbers and a bit of a risk assessment as well. So we went away and did that, and the presentation will be quite similar. So, but for any of those that weren't here, just a bit of an update. Oh, so back when the scheme was being established, this portion of land that we're referring to, it wasn't purchased for whatever reason, not sure, but it sits just wedged in between the Peak Dome and what's locally known as the ABCD Flex Block. It's in quite a crucial part of the scheme where the Piako River cuts inland through the wetland, and it seems to be a bit of a pinch point where this is the first area to flood in a flood event. You've also got the Mokolo line stop that runs along here, so that essentially cuts it off from the rest of the farm, and there have already sort of been preliminary discussions with the landowner, and they are willing to sell at this time that bit of land. So it's just over 18 hectares, and there's a dock stop bank that runs along the top here, and there's also some other low-lying stop banks that they're not council owned, that were possibly put in by a farmer to protect that bit of land. So that's what we're looking at. Next slide, please. So the importance of this area I sort of touched on. It's also the only access, which is currently on the privately owned land. It's the only access into that part of the scheme for WRC. It's also the only access into the flex block, the southern part of the flex block, the dock, and also the own land, it's the only access for them as well. So we're all sort of at the goodwill of the landowner, access through there, we're able to have at the moment. But if they sell that land, then we won't, we may not have a amenable landowner in future. We might not have that same luxury.
With three entities having wanting access, and so all three entities prepared to put some income into buy that land, or is it just?
Well, I believe that some discussions that have been had with DOC in the past, they've indicated that they would be willing to also put some money in. We haven't spoken to them again. We were kind of wanting to, put it over the line first before we went down that road.
And what about Emu? Are they contributing?
I'm not aware of that. The other thing to note as well is we've got the Mokoro line stop bank. It's quite steep, and it's going to be one of the next upgrade projects that'll be happening in future. We've done from the surveying of the area, we've done just run a few numbers, and there's a potential $300,000 worth of fill available on site that we could use potentially for that upgrade work. So that would be available directly on site, no coverage into there. So that would be the potential benefits. Next slide.
Just on that one, Sarah, before you move on from that.
Yep.
Where it says the river finished at this point, there may be people further down that think that's a good thing. Slows the water down.
There might be, but the modelling, I don't think much flooding happens below.
That may be holding the water up.
Yeah, it is.
For our end, it's not a bad thing.
But
Otherwise,
I'd have to ask, but I believe the floodwaters, once they get past the wetlands, they don't. It sort of spreads out and it gets away quite easily down there. I don't think it comes close to the top of the stopping. So yeah.
I think you've got to understand the function of the river there. Once you get to the end of ABC flat block, tidal effects of this is our bath. Next we get water to, and as soon as the tide changes, it just lets it go. So the overland flow and actually both sides of the river here. Kenny's explained all this in a couple of meetings previously, that when he's gone back and done hydrology of it and started understanding the overland flows. This is a really important area in the river of actually making the lower Piarco function really well and efficient. So I think that's what staff are trying to get out of this is a really important part of how the function used to work correctly in the past, and it's been man-made changes that has affected the function of our river. And I think that's what you're trying to get across, and that's why we need the staff are putting up for us to purchase it, correct it, and maybe take soil from the area, and then decide what's the best thing to do with that land afterwards, and if it's to sell it to someone or whatever, but put the right caveats on it and everything else, so then we can move forward and take this bottleneck out of the scheme is what they're trying to get across.
I'm agreeing with you, Robbie, but I'm also saying that there is a restriction there, and if you change that and have an adverse effect downstream, you have to consider that and possibly also.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into that with you because the scheme design is the scheme design.
Yeah.
And this block of land has artificially affected the way the scheme works.
So there's a video next that will explain a bit of the hydrology of the area. So
I can speak on that. Yes, don't mind. That spoiling where the top line is like, that one there.
Yeah.
That changed everything. Doc put that in to keep the water in the block to eradicate possums. So it's a nonsense bank. And possums fun. They didn't need that. And then they dug a moat along the Mokoro line, holding water against the bank all year round. So no, with the stop banks. So they've changed things.
yeah,
So it should be taken back to what it was designed for, the scheme.
Yeah.
The overflow goes straight into the ABCD flex block and back into the Kopua type peat dam. And it stays there till the river drops and then runs itself out. They've got culverts on the Waikaki end, and they've got culvert at the end of that line going into the Piako. So they've changed it. That's not how the scheme was designed.
Who's
saying the, hang on, see now.
Yeah.
Doc did it. Aitchison got the blame, but Doc did it for this possum control. They got possum control gates at the end of that. They've got possum control gates by the Waikaki and they just walk around. So, yeah, it's crazy.
I was just going to say, we do have hydraulic modelling.
Yeah.
And we do have a video to come that talks about this as well, and it's based on the 2017 flood event. So, yeah, one of the worst that the Piako's had for a very long period of time. But from a process perspective, if we purchase this piece of land, we would then, I think, as somebody's already mentioned, go back and review what our options are, acknowledging that modelling can dictate what the effects are. We are pretty certain there's no downriver effect, but good to get it's talked about those.
Can I just ask a question? I think Roger touched on a point, access for iwi, sharing in cost. That should not be a question. And secondly, turning to you, if this land is purchased, what is the issue historically with council owned land? This council could disappear, or councils are disappearing, but there will be councils. So is there a risk that any council owned land is given over to iwi and a treaty settlement? So how do we make sure that continue to serve its purpose? So maybe that's something for another day, but it's just.
Yeah, look, I think it's too early to be thinking about what the future type government looks like and the implications for this land. It's a question for all our other scheme land.
We've recently been involved in a number of requests for transfer of land from council to iwi. What I can confirm is there's a number of caveats that go with that land. So where there is flood protection assets already in place, they're protected in perpetuity going forward. So should we purchase this land, should it then get transferred to some other entity, those assets that we have in its purpose get protected in a legal instrument.
So that actually asks a bigger picture. If this has been purchased by ratepayers, how are those ratepayers compensated if the land is transferred to someone else? Because that's basically, I might be in a can of worms, and I don't need to do this, but I just want everyone in the room to know that if you invested something now, and this has only come to me while listening to this, Karen, you've just confirmed that that's what happens. But I'll just sit back now and think about it some more.
It's a valid point, Noel. If you do purchase it, you have to define whether the council owns it or the ratepayers own it that belong to the scheme. And because particularly if you go into the CCO or something like that.
Exactly, because people put their hand on the block to pay for this. It has to be particularly go forward.
So I think for me, the value for ratepayers is the purpose of service. And it's the purpose that we would make sure it's protected through these instruments. So regardless of who actually has responsibility for managing that land, the purpose that ratepayers purchase this land is maintained. That's a good point.
What discussion has council had with Doc? Because you say that that's a pinch point. I'm on the other side of this. And what I see is that in my lifetime, we've gone from grazing these blocks where stock actually open up the channels, open up all the vegetation underneath and allow the water to move in and out. And now we have this vegetated barrier that's most probably close to 1,200 high. and the water comes down and it's like a blocked drain. It doesn't want to flow in because there's no open channels. So unless we have a discussion with Doc on being able to open certain areas on the other side of the river to allow that water to flow through, it just channels itself straight to that point right at the end of Maukora Road, and then it won't go anywhere else. And the other question is, I know after 217, there was, oh yes, we've opened up a couple of channels into the black spot. Are they still being maintained?
The Constellation drones you're talking about.
No, not the Constellation drains. Kenny was working on actually having a bulldozer going in and actually cutting some slots into the flax block. And like I say, the flax block used to be grazed by livestock. And to be perfectly honest, with the stock being in there and the grazing license that we could get as revenue, I know this is going to be a no-no because no one wants livestock on dock land, but the level of service by having the stock opening that up and allowing the water to breathe in and out like a set of lungs, and the revenue that you could get back from the grazing and using a system like Halter, that the stock were there for only a limited time, would alleviate quite a lot of the pinch points. Because Clark used to graze on the other side of the river all the way through. And if you come down now and look at the wall of vegetation that's there, I don't know, it's the original dig back in 50 or 64, Ian most probably knows when the dig went through. There's still big areas of fill left on the other side with little channels in between. But unless they're opened up, the water comes down, then where does it go? Does it mean that we move more silt into Natia, push it through, rather than this system breathing? So are we having discussions with Doc and being allowed to open up to actually maintain the integrity of the scheme, or are we losing part of the scheme?
I believe there's been a few discussions in the past with Doc around management of this area, and Karen probably would know a little bit more about that.
Yeah, and part of our hydraulic modelling will be, as you talk about, the impacts of change of vegetation management.
Yeah.
So I see that as the next step. If we own it, we've got more of an opportunity to manage our own, but have a conversation with our landowners about, or their neighbours, about how that water moves into, out of the ABCD flex block.
But that only 80 hectares. I'm talking about the willow zone. I mentioned it to Kenny once before. If we had control of the actual ponding zone, not the brush in the 56,000 acres or whatever else is on the other side, because that's actually a contributor to the system. But just the willow zone is where the water ponds. That's why willow trees grow there. And if we could get back to the old system of having managed grazing, revenue for the scheme, yeah, it'll be a no-no. Doc won't allow it.
I think the best thing there is actually building a trusty relationship with Doc of how like that could be managed, that we could then use that sort of management system on the eastern side of the river to manage, mitigate flood use there, but it won't be stock. As you just heard, they don't want us grazing on any of their land. So, but we, and back in what year was that, and in the early 90s, we went through there with Kirapay and they put like 6 or 8 little river diversions so it could actually go out to the willows.
Yeah.
And mostly what you're talking about there is actually making sure that those little river diversions going out into the old Waitara River stream, where it is, I think it's about 100 metres off where the river is now, that we can get overland flow to the old river bed. And that's what you're talking about. There's overland flow to the old river bed, so we got a bigger floodplain. That's what you're trying to do. So you're all on the same page. He's talking about the old Waitara River bed, which is like 100 metres. It's like,
Yeah.
and the river, when they Harvard, they built the new structure of river course, and all that material was chucked out there on the right, and now there's a bund there that water can't get out. And I think when Kenny showed it in the diagram, the old Waikato River bed, when it actually comes out, it actually goes straight through that block of H's, and it wants to overflow directly out into the ABC flat spot. So we're all talking about the same thing, but showing good management here may allow us not to do those things. Where that's something we've got to work out.
And the question is fire. We're getting that much dry debris putting.
That's box job though, mate. That's their land. They've got to deal with it. That's got nothing to do with us.
On to the next slide. So, yeah, the next slide is, I'll sit down and let Grant do the talking. So Grant is our subject matter expert. He's just a bit of a video explanation on the flow path and what happens in that particular spot. So. Yeah, we can do it. I've got it on a memory stick.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you were present in the August meeting,
Just adjourn.
like that, you know.
Can we just adjourn for 5 minutes while Jordan pulls up there? Just
Yeah, sure.
memory stick and have a cup of tea and a drink. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Oh, he did quite a job. Two meetings. English council system is community. Sharing information.
Last much discussion was. Yeah.
It really doesn't stop.
What we want to do is manage. It's one of to be able to do what it has been doing in the past. Because the conservation is
Also comes back to the service. Three nights. What are we sitting?
Because it's accounting
That's what you guys describe. Ask those questions as well.
Yeah, on drunk view. When we've got the lead and the end items, and bring it on their challenge next year.
I don't know if I want to be ready.
But it could be, I think, support. And for some. We need to.
Yeah, from incentive perspective.
Usually says. It's great.
Oh, my hands look great.
I'll try my luck. I'll try here first, like, okay. Here you go. Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah, so we can get that for you. Because a sharing. Yeah. Yeah. So the trick is, and it won't have sound now because I'm control. See, the trick is not done. Oh, yeah, sure, yeah. You go share, include sound.
Feature. This particular
Yeah, no worries. Why did the, so.
Come on. 72, no, we're open house.
Can you put that, record and transcribe it? Yeah.
Yeah. I should have brought a Bluetooth mouse so I could connect to it from over there.
Yeah. Might be getting back now.
We're almost there, City.
So one of those reports is good to go. You're waiting on my waiting. Well, actually, so we're not doing.
You are done. I'll sit down or go. Just stop.
Oh,
No, you here. Oh, is it just me or is it freezing?
It's cold, eh? It's cold, man.
I don't even get cold, but it's
Oh,
cold
yeah.
here.
Yeah, I'm thinking summer's finished.
yeah, that's right.
You can tap that button, surely.
That's when I forgot what jersey on, but it's summer here.